Okay, so this is going to be the unit overview for the Project Global Inform unit. We are going to be doing these activities as a class, and we're going to break them down a little bit differently. But if you are absent or need a refresher any day of the project, this one we're just going to do as a whole, so that way you can get the whole video all in one place rather than breaking it down on a day-by-day basis. So some of the activities that are in here are going to be more of a group discussion one, but this video is going to be all in one, so that way if you need to review any section or if you miss a day, you can get the whole overview in one video. So the first thing you need to do is watch this video, First World Problems Read by Third World People. It really makes us see how ridiculous some of our problems seem when you put them on a grander scale. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do within your groups, you would make a list of things that you need versus things that you want. Then you're going to discuss the following questions. Is it easy to differentiate between needs and wants? What happens when someone's wants are not fulfilled? What happens when someone's needs are not fulfilled? What happens to a community when many people's basic needs are not met? Are there people who don't have their basic needs met in the world? In the US? In your community? In your school? Should these needs be met, and why or why not? Should some people have their wants satisfied if other needs are not met? What can be done so that all basic needs are met for everyone? Whose responsibility is it to meet everyone's basic needs? What actions could you take to help meet the basic needs of others in the community? Okay, the next thing you're going to watch is an ADA animated short about human rights. We're going to be talking a lot about what human rights are in this unit. We're going to read a human rights novel, and then we're going to create a human rights action project. So first thing we need to do is kind of talk about what human rights are in general. So click on the link to this video or go to YouTube and find it. It is the ADRA animated short Human Rights. Okay, next video we're going to watch is on Vimeo. So either click the link or follow this link. And you're going to watch the Project Global Inform introduction. The idea for this project is not something that I came up with completely on my own. I got the idea from another educator's blog, AJ Giuliani. If you are interested, there's a lot of other resources and ideas on his blog, but I took those ideas for that unit and I made it specifically for our class. So this is the project overview from his website. So watch that video, and we're going to go back to the presentation. Okay, so for this unit, your goal is to be able to define human rights, identify past and current human rights issues, create a project to inform others of the issue, and describe what actions they should take. Okay, so human rights encompasses justice, prosperity, rule of law, dignity, hope, peace, freedom, and equality. So the next video you're going to watch is a human rights image campaign. Again, you can either click this link or go to YouTube and find this video. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at 3 posters and we're going to discuss them. So this one says, ever been in a fight? Children as young as 7 are conscripted both by rebel and government forces. They are sometimes kidnapped, but are also given to soldiers by their families because of extreme poverty. For some children, fighting is about survival. These children are exposed to violence, abuse, and drug taking and are left traumatized. Upon escaping this life, they are often rejected by their families and left alone, without means of supporting themselves. There are 30,000 children like this in the Democratic Republic of Congo alone. War Child has given these young people a chance to rebuild their lives and find a place in the world again. So take a few minutes in your group and you would discuss this poster and the ideas in it in your group. The next poster said, ever wish you didn't have to go to school? Too many children are forced to live and work on the streets just to survive. They are often exploited and face danger on a daily basis. In Iraq, 1 child dies every 5 minutes due to conflict. Given a choice, they would love to go to school. For thousands of children across the world, going to school is not even an option. So take a minute in your group to discuss this poster. Next says, ever felt trapped like you can't escape? For some children, this is a brutal reality. In Afghanistan, they are in prison with adults. For some girls, this is simply for refusing to marry someone they may have never met. Many other children are in prison without trial. They are afraid and uncertain as to what will happen when they are sent home. So take a minute and discuss this with your group. So the point of this unit is not to make us feel bad for the freedoms we have, but to make us realize what freedoms we have, as well as what freedoms other people in other countries don't have, and what we can do to help those people. We shouldn't just say, okay, that's awesome, I have a lot of freedoms, and I know that there's people in other countries that don't. We should do something about it to help those people have the same freedoms that we have. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to watch an Invisible Children documentary, so learn a little bit more about human rights in other countries and issues of human rights in other countries. And while we're watching it, you'll have a worksheet to do as well. So the Invisible Children project was to help spread awareness about child soldiers in Uganda. So we're going to watch the video and then we're going to discuss it as a class. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a Socratic Smackdown Take a Stand activity. So I'm going to go through these questions that we're going to discuss as a class. So these are questions that we discussed as a class, and that video will be up as well, but we'll go through some of these questions so that way you know what questions we discussed as a class. Okay, so for the first activity, it's a take a stand activity. So if you think killing is wrong always, you stand on the far left side of the room. Sometimes you stand in the middle, and never you stand on the one side, and we'll do this for each kind of set of questions. We could also do this in a Socratic Smackdown type format, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So we might do either or for your class, it just depends. So we'll talk about the Socratic Smackdown format a little bit, but for all the take a stand related questions, if you agree with the statement that it always is wrong or is always right, then you'll stand on the left side. If you think it's sometimes wrong or right, then you'll stand on the middle. And if you think it's never wrong or right, you'll stand on the right. And then we'll discuss these always, sometimes, or nevers and why you think that as a class. So first one is killing is wrong. Second one is keeping someone as a slave is wrong, always, sometimes, or never. At a certain age, people should always, sometimes, or never be able to marry whomever they want. People should be able to say or write whatever they wish, always, sometimes, or never. All people should be treated equally, always, sometimes, or never. People should be told why they're in prison, always, sometimes, or never. People should be able to criticize the government, always, sometimes, or never. People should be able to talk to and meet whoever they want, always, sometimes, or never. It is wrong to force a person to work, always, sometimes, or never. A person accused of a crime should be tried by someone who has nothing to do with the case, always, sometimes, or never. People should be able to leave the country and go wherever they wish, sometimes, always, or never. Private phone calls should be intercepted, always, sometimes, or never. People should be able to have whatever religious rights they want, always, sometimes, or never. Everyone, some people, or no one has the right to medical help. So left side is going to be everyone, middle will be some people, and right side will be no one has the right to medical help. People should be able to be citizens of whatever country they wish, always, sometimes, or never. Everyone, some people, or no one should have the right to a free and public education. Okay, so the next section is Socratic Smackdown. So now that you've kind of gathered your thoughts about where you fall in that spectrum, we're going to use the Socratic Smackdown type format to have a discussion specifically about those. So before you kind of just said, this is where I fall on the spectrum, now you're going to be able to actually discuss these. So is killing wrong? What about the death penalty? And what about terrorist? Is keeping someone as a slave wrong? Does sex trafficking, child labor, or arranged marriages count as slavery? Should people be able to marry whomever they want? Should people be able to write or say whatever they wish? What if it exposes government information? What if it is thought to be slanderous or libel but not proven? What about cases like Edward Snowden? Should all people be treated equally? What about terrorists and criminals? Should people be told why are they being held in prison? What about the terrorists that we hold at Guantanamo Bay? Should people be able to meet and talk to whomever they want? Should people be allowed to criticize the government? Is it wrong to force someone to work? Should people accused of a crime be tried by someone who has nothing to do with the case? Should people be able to leave the country and go wherever they wish? Should private phone calls be intercepted? Should people be able to have whatever religious beliefs they want? Should the government provide free health care? Should people be able to be citizens of whatever country they wish? What about U.S. citizens of other countries? And what about other citizens of other countries of the U.S.? Should everyone have the right to a free and public education? Okay, so after we discuss those questions, we'll move on to the next activity. Okay, so the next thing we're going to watch is the story of human rights. We're going to talk about how did people start actually advocating for other people's human rights. So go ahead and click on the link to watch this video or find this video on YouTube. Okay, so human rights is based on the principle of respect for the individual. It's a fundamental assumption is that every person is a moral and rational being who deserves to be treated with dignity. So every single person is a moral and rational being who deserves to be treated with dignity. So the first person we're going to talk about is Malala. So go ahead and click this link to watch the Daily Show interview with Malala. And we're also going to watch the TED Talk by her dad. So you'll want to go on TED Talk's website and find her father's TED Talk as well. Next thing we're going to talk about is North Korea. So go on to TED Talks and click this link or find it on the TED Talks website. And it is My Escape from North Korea. And then the last video we're going to watch was from Zach Ibrahim. We're going to watch his TED Talk, and then we're also going to read some of his book. So go ahead and watch this video. Click on the link or find it on the TED Talks. Okay, so why should you even care? You live in this world, and you're responsible for how the world is. One person can make a difference. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do an activity. We're going to discuss who is in the United Nations, what countries are not in the United Nations, and what happens to countries who are kicked out. And we're going to look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and we're going to get into groups and create thing links about each declaration. So see your group to get more information about your human right for your thing link. Where do you think these rights are currently being violated? So you're going to create a thing link that shows how many examples of current violations. So like I said, each of your group is going to get an article of human right or 2 or 3, and you're going to create a thing link showing where they are currently being violated. So links to news articles and YouTube videos showing this. Keep in mind your YouTube videos should be focused around current examples of that violation. So you're going to want to focus on within the past 10, 15 years or so. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what can you do. So watch this video, Equal Rights, Equal Respect video. This is a group of people who went out and actually created projects like we're going to do about helping other people's whose rights are being violated. If you want to see information by topic, you can click this link, and we're going to go over some more resources once we start talking about our actual projects. And there's also a Take Action guide. This will give you some ideas for your project as well. Okay, so next we're going to talk about what we're actually going to do for this project. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the novel and assessment information. So this is what we're going to be actually doing with Project Global Inform. So it says human rights awareness has grown over the past 20 years, but violations still persist and continue to rise up in the midst of conflict. The 2010 Human Rights Watch report states that despite the growth in the human rights movement, human rights defenders remain vulnerable and greatly in need of support by rights-respecting governments. The organization's 20th annual review of human rights practices around the globe summarizes major human rights trends in more than 90 nations and territories worldwide, reflecting the extensive investigation work carried out in 2009 by Human Rights Watch staff. Executive Director Kenneth Roth argues that the ability of the human rights movement to exert pressure on behalf of victims has grown enormously in recent years, and that this development has spawned a reaction from abusive governments that grew particularly intense in 2009. Project Global Inform is a peace education project where you will use media to spread awareness about human rights violations. The project's main objective is to create awareness about current human rights violations. The focus of this research will be on what human rights violations exist and what specific actions should be taken. In this unit, we will be discussing human rights issues and reading corresponding literature. You will be able to choose what book you would like to read, but you must get this book approved by your teacher. The book should have a human rights issue present. It may be fiction or nonfiction. Your book should be appropriate to your grade level. You may not choose a book you have read for a class before, and it should focus around a current human rights issue. If you go to Canvas, you'll see this, and you can click on these two links for some examples. The first one is fiction literature, literature for teaching human rights. It's an annotated bibliography, so they'll give you each book. They'll tell you who wrote it, the name of the book, and they'll give you a little bit of description about it. So there are quite a few books on this link, so you can review that one if you want to read a fiction book. And then this next list is from Goodreads, and it's a list of human rights, both fiction and nonfiction in general, and this one is sorted by popularity. I also have quite a few, so we will sit down and talk, and depending on what you're interested in, we will discuss which one you should read. Okay, so step one is to choose a book. So like I said, it can be fiction or nonfiction. It has to be some sort of current human rights issue, and it cannot be a book you have previously read for class. Your novel and your project are going to focus on one of the 2030 goals. So go to 2030schools.com if you need to see what human rights novel you might want to choose. It should focus on one of these goals. So these are the goals that were set by 2030 that the UN wants to achieve. So your project and your book should focus on one of these. And we're going to get into groups based on what your goal is. So your book should focus on no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, decent work and economic growth, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, responsible consumption and production, life below water, life on land, climate action, peace and justice, strong institution, and partnership for the goals. So your novel will focus on one of these goals, and then you will work on a project with other people whose novels based on that goal. So you can read the same novel as someone else, but you may not, you don't have to, and you will be in people that will be based on the goal. So several of you may read a book that discusses poverty and reducing poverty, and then you will work on a project based on poverty. And we'll talk about how to use this 2030 schools for your project too when we get to that section. Okay, so then we're going to blog daily about our novel. So we're going to spend a few weeks reading it, and then we're going to be blogging every day. On your first post, you're going to explain what human rights are and why we should care. You should also tell us which 2030 goal your book discusses and give us background information over this issue. So if you go back to that 2030 schools, click on whichever issue your book is discovering, and it'll tell you what the UN's target is, and it'll give you some information about that as well. So this is the poverty rate according to World Bank, and then this is the target by the UN. So the UN says that by 2030, they want to eradicate extreme poverty for all people everywhere, currently measured as people living on less than $1.25 a day. They also said by 2030, they want to reduce at least by half the proportion of men, women, and children of all ages living in poverty and its dimensions according to national definitions. They want to implement national appropriate social protection systems and measures for all, including floors, and by 2030 achieve substantial coverage of the poor and the vulnerable. By 2030, they want to ensure that all men and women, in particular the poor and the vulnerable, have equal rights to economic resources, as well to basic services, ownership and control over land and other forms of 13 property, inheritance, natural resources, appropriate new technology, and financial services, including microfinance. By 2030, they want to build the resilience of the poor and those in vulnerable situations and reduce their exposure and vulnerability to climate-related extreme events and other economic, social, and environmental shocks and disasters. They want to ensure significant mobilization of resources from a variety of sources, including through enhanced development cooperation, in order to provide adequate and predictable means for developing countries, in particular least developed countries, to implement programs and policies to end poverty in all its dimensions. They want to create sound policy frameworks at the national, regional, and international levels based on pro-poor and gender-sensitive development strategies to support accelerated investment in poverty eradication actions. So you're going to want to go to your goal, and then you're going to summarize this on the blog. So provide us a summary of what their 2030 goal is and some things about it. Some current poverty rates or whatever your topic is. Okay, then you will also, as you read your book, you're going to summarize what has happened so far and discuss what human rights are being violated in your book and how. Be sure to speak to your audience in this. Act as if you're telling your friends about it. So you're going to tell us, summarize what's happened so far, and talk about how are human rights being violated in your novel. Once you get done reading your book, you're going to answer these 11 questions in your final blog post. Again, remember not to just answer the questions, but to speak to your readers. Okay, step 4 is going to be the project, and we're going to take about 2 weeks to do the project as well. So you're going to be able to deliver a presentation that explains a human rights violation and persuade others to take action. You'll be able to spread awareness of the issue through incorporation of multiple mediums and through a campaign to help end the violation. Okay, so this is going to be your task. So you are the member of a company that is in charge of investigating and ending human rights violation. Your task is to find a human rights violation, explain that violation. So you're going to take whatever your goal is, and you're going to explain that to us. So where is it currently occurring? What is the violation? And also talk about which specific article in the Human Rights Declaration of Human Rights does it violate. You're going to spread awareness of the violation and start a campaign to end that violation. In order to spread awareness of that issue, you have to choose at least 3 of the following. So there's a whole list of things that you can do. You have to choose 3 of them. To start a campaign to end that violation, you will find a charity that helps the organization and create a fundraiser event for that charity, or start your own charity project to help others in the area that are victims of the violation. You will also present a persuasive speech to the class that will be recorded and put on your blog. Your speech will inform others of the violation and persuade others to help your campaign. So there's 2 parts to this project. One is your speech and presentation, and the other part is your project itself. So you're going to create a presentation over which goal you have, explain that goal to the class, and where are violations of that goal currently being, where are countries that are currently violating that goal or places that are currently violating that human right, and kind of explain your goal in general. And then also talk about charities that help that, and then also include examples from your project on your presentation. So your presentation should be persuading others to take action and giving them where to take action. So look at your rubric for your speech, and then we're going to go over the rubric for your project. So for your project, you're going to choose 3 or more different mediums to effectively spread awareness of the topic, and you're going to organize a charity event for it as well. Charity event doesn't necessarily mean people have to donate money, but it should be something where you're spreading awareness of that issue. Okay, so one resource is Twitter, and don't forget to hashtag everything 2030 schools. One is an interview. One is a picture or craft. One is video. One is a news article. One is a song or a movie. And you have to choose at least 3 of those. So you're going to pick a novel, you're going to read your novel, then you're going to blog while you're reading it, and then you're going to create a persuasive presentation, and you're going to create a charity event and spread awareness through at least 3 of those different types of ways to spread awareness. So choose at least 3. You can do more than if you want, just whatever's going to effectively meet your goal.